and WG40 FM 95.9 Newport, New York. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Real Estate Plate. As always, I'm your host, Nick Sakalis, coming to you live from the WGBB studios here in lovely Merrick, New York. Even though it's not a lovely, lovely day today, it is one of these wet and damp and muggy days. But I'll take it. We're at the end of October, and the weather could be a lot worse. I'm happy with what we got. So, as everybody knows, did a little bit of promotion on this week's show, the Real Estate Horror Story show that we usually do. Always the last Halloween, the last Monday before Halloween, or if it falls on Halloween, it would be that actual day. And we got a lot of stuff that came into us, and I'm going to get into this. Wait, let me actually turn around and give you guys my high-tech graphics that we have here. You got the Real Estate Horror Stories episode. There you go. That's your high-tech graphics. I'm not sure if that came out the right way on the camera, but I'll do some editing and actually add real graphics after the video is done. We're live here, so everything that could go wrong is possibly and will go wrong. So that's what we have here. That being said, I wanted to go over a few things first of all before we really kick into the show and get into the whole theme. The first thing is I just came across a realization that this is officially the anniversary of my third year doing this show. So today is our third year anniversary of the Real Estate Plate. Not exactly, because this time in 2017 on October 30th was when we did our first show. And I actually just heard the sound of that original show, and it was absolutely terrible. If people that are listening right now would like to have me actually publicize that audio, we don't have video at the time because we weren't as high tech as we are right now. Low tech as we are, we were even more low tech at that point. So we are. I have the audio. I can actually put it in podcast form and put it together in a video. If people want to hear that and poke fun of how bad I sounded at that point, I'll put it on there, and hopefully it at least amuses people, or at least puts them to sleep. You know, that would be a good thing too, I guess. You know, you have that show that was actually not only our first show, but it was the first annual horror story show. That was the theme that I kicked off with, and that's why I've been holding on to that theme every year this time of the year. So, that being said, this year we were set to have a contest, and this contest has really taken a very different direction than what I normally would have expected from the past couple of years. And part of the reason for that difference and change in direction that we've taken is because of recent videos, recent posts, recent shows that we've done that were more focused towards the issues that are happening between landlords and tenants. And it's gotten very real, so to say. It's gotten very real, and it's definitely taken a different approach of what I expected coming down the line. I've gotten a ton of messages, emails, PMs, DMs that are really talking about hardships that landlords have had. And I've also gotten a lot of messages in regards to the troubles that a lot of tenants are having at this point. So that being said, don't know how to approach this year. I really don't, because it's something that I don't want to make light of, and I don't want to necessarily make uh, a spectacle or like turn it into a contest or to turn it into something frivolous. All the problems that landlords are going through right now are pretty serious, and they are affecting people's lives. And I could understand a lot of things that tenants are going through as well. And I'm going to make a point of letting tenants that are listening to the show right now understand that I'm not against you. I'm not against one side or the other. And you need to understand that. I have a very even keel as far as my approach. Anything that I've been putting out there, anything as far as a message is concerned, is directed towards just making it a fair and even playing field for both sides. I'm not necessarily attacking tenants and telling them that they're always at fault, because they're clearly not. And there's more good tenants out there than bad tenants. And the same thing applies to landlords. You have more good landlords out there than bad landlords. It's always those few bad seeds or bad apples that make it very difficult and very strange for a lot of people how to be able to interact. Trevor, that's what I'm talking about. It's coming right through. Sorry for the quick break. That's part of our technical issues here in this office, in this studio. We'll get through it. We'll figure out a way to keep everything going. But that's that's what I wanted to basically make sure that people listening understand that we're not doing this show to have an agenda one way or the other. The agenda is to put all the issues of real estate out there, current events, past events, um, how to be able to do transactions, et cetera, et cetera. But it's all real estate related, and it's not with any bias or any specific agenda of how to be able to get people to go feel one direction or another. We're not looking for sympathy on one side. We're just looking for even type of playing field. And I'm going to get into a lot of these landlord tenant issues and make it a little more clear for everybody going forward with additional videos. I will talk about this more on the radio by bringing in guests. I'll be bringing in landlords. I'll be bringing in tenants, get everybody's side of the equation in place. And I also want to make sure that every side has their opportunity to voice their opinions, and that way nobody feels like they're being neglected or fake news on the media, that kind of thing. I'm not necessarily the media the way you typically think of, but I am part of the media because I am on radio. I am streaming right now on multiple platforms. Thank you all for watching on Facebook. I'm looking straight at you right now. I'm looking straight at you from the YouTube world. We got two cameras going on at the same time. I'd love for everybody to be switching back and forth at one point or after the replay is done to go and check the quality differences, because we just changed something up considerably. On the Facebook live feed, I am using a 1080p camera. That's the camera we've been using. That's the better quality camera. That's been the standard that I've been using for most of the videos on the live stream. And now we just incorporated a 4K camera that we're using on the YouTube live feed. So I'd love to. Now, the reason I'm using different cameras and different platforms are, one, to see the difference in qualities between the two cameras, two, to see how well they stream without any kind of buffering or any kind of issues, and three, if it really makes that big of a difference. Everybody's saying 4K is the way to go. Okay, so we're using 4K. It took me a long time to incorporate that and use it, so I bit the bullet, bought a 4K camera, and hopefully that is going to be the platform. Now, I'm putting this out to everybody. The real estate horror story I will be extended, and the contest that we've been conducting, everybody that doesn't know all the rules, I'm gonna make it very clear because a lot of people don't seem to like to follow directions. So I'm gonna make it very clear for everybody. First and most important, it has to be a story that's original. Okay. If you're sending me the Amityville horror story, I already know about the story, and it's also public. I'm not going to be able to use that and submit that as a, a story to be put in the contest. And that's just an example. I've got a lot of stories like that that are very public. Everybody knows about these stories. The media, they've been all over the news. You Google it, you find out right away what that story is all about. So I got a lot of those stories with people pretending that that was their story. That being said, I can't use those, and I got a lot of those. Another thing that I received a lot of was made up stories. And as I mentioned in the promos that we've done building up to the show, that if I'm going to use a made up story and you're going to send something that you completely falsified, at least make it sound realistic and make it sound really, really interesting. If you don't do that, I can't use that either. Now, who am I to say what's real and what's not real? Well, it's my show, it's my contest, and I can figure out if it's not real. And if I do have somebody that wants to dispute whether because I've answered everybody with emails as far as my responses were on them, but if you're disputing it, send me some proof, send me some pictures. I've asked that from a lot of people. Send me some pictures, some video, something that kind of puts it together for you. Now, you're not going to be able to give me pictures of a ghost or something like that, but show me the house, show me something that kind of gives me an indication of what we're looking at to build a story together. So I'm going to extend it, and I'm going to put another video just clarifying everything. I'm going to list all the rules again to make sure that everybody completely understands them, because I don't want to feel anybody to feel being neglected or not looked at the same way that others do. But in the meantime, until that gets put in place and we put a definitive date on when the contest is going to be officially over, I'm going to add another stipulation to this video because it is the third anniversary special, and I am very thankful to all the viewers, to all the listeners that are tuning in through the live stream, to the people that are on the radio. Speaking of which, if you do want to call in live, the number here is 516-623-1240, 516-623-1240. And I'm going to give something extra special with this video. And I'm going to open it up to both platforms as far as if you're watching through YouTube Live, for the first 100, for every, actually not only for the first, for every 100 likes that we get on this video, I am going to put a lottery together, a draft, or I don't know what this word for is, a lottery. Yeah, we'll call it a lottery, where I pick one of the subscribers' names, and they'll get a $25 Amazon gift card for every 100. So it's not actually the first 100; it's for every 100. So if we get to 1,000 likes, that's 10 cards I'm going to be putting out there. And here's another big bonus that I'm going to put out there: for every 100 comments out there, I'm going to give a $100 Amazon gift card. That's a pretty good prize for just getting 100 comments. And your comments don't have to be elaborate. I'll even accept the thumbs up. But I'm going to make that contest, that part of that component, more exclusive because I'm only going to take all the people that commented, take their names into the consideration, not all the subscribers. The likes are for all the subscribers, but the comments are only on the comment page. So, in other words, if we only have 100 people, your chances are 1 out of 100 to get an Amazon gift card. It's pretty good chances to be able to win something like that. So it'll be good, and I'll do the contest, the picking of the name live. That way, people don't feel that I'm cheating or anything like that, and you can feel that it's all on the up and up. And I'm going to put that out to this on the same level over on the Facebook Live. So if you're watching here on Facebook Live, for the first 100 likes that we get, this is much easier to be able to do on Facebook than it is on YouTube, because I could actually track all the people that actually like the video. So for every 100 people that like the video, I am going to be giving out a $25 gift card. 2,500. That would be a big for me if I get a million likes, which I don't think it's going to happen. But like I said, for every 100 likes that we get on this video, I'm actually going to give a $25 Amazon gift card. And the only people on Facebook that will be part of that contest will be the people that actually like the video. And I could track who actually liked the video and be able to do that lottery and put them all like in a bag or something and pick out a name. So it's going to be very similar on both platforms. You're more than welcome to be able to do it on both, and double your chances of winning a gift card. And that's a big thank you to everybody that's been listening and the audience that has really supported the show going forward. So now that we got all that contest stuff out, now we got the giveaways out. Just giving you the email one more time for everybody to be able to send their submissions to the horror story contest, which is realestateplateradio@gmail.com. Again, this realestateradio@gmail.com. And I'll put that in the description below. That way you can email it. I'd love to be able to put something together in a proper fashion. Because right now what I have is a complete mess of stories that are partial and the other thing. And if you're going to be sending something through an email, please send me how to be able to respond to you other than just an email. Put your full name, put a phone number, put something together. That way I can connect everything together and I know that whoever's submitting is legitimate. It would help a lot. It would help a tremendous amount in order to do that. So, like I said, it's been a very, very wild ride for the past 3 years. And we're going back to the basics of where we began, and that's with real estate horror stories. So I got a lot of this stuff out of the way. Like I said, I'm not necessarily the greatest radio host from the way I present. The one thing I could offer is the fact that I know a thing or two about a thing or two, especially when it comes to real estate. And that's been the whole premise of the show, to be able to portray or to share my insights with the audience, tell my opinions, some advice, give some real estate tips, and get people to feel more comfortable and make it a little bit more entertaining, a little bit more fun when you're looking at the world of real estate. So I'm going to jump into a couple things, because I found some things that were actually really interesting and they fit right into the theme of the show. And one of the things was I did find a letter, an article, blog, whatever you want to call it, through business. And the article is called 13 Real Estate Horror Stories and How to Avoid Them. And This is really interesting, these stories that I came across, because they were very different from what I've gotten in the past. So that's why I'll be able to share these with everybody. Again, I'm not giving any of the submittals yet because I don't want to taint any future submittals that come in. And we'll get into that. It'll probably be a direct stream that's not going to be on the radio. I'll just say the winners on the radio once that actually happens. But for now, we're going to go over some of these articles, some of the stories that I found of real interest and really interesting. So, 13 real estate horror stories and how to avoid them. It's funny to use the number 13. Number one, stealing medication during open house. At the top of our horror story is a list. At the horror story list is a open house incident related to Dinah Oaks of Willingsville, Oregon. Willingsville, I've never even heard of that. Who was selling her own property a couple of years ago. She let buyers walk through her home at their own pace. When one visitor did not return for a long time, Oaks went searching for him and found him rifling through their kitchen cabinet. She asked him what he was looking for, and he bolted out the door with her prescription medication in his jacket. Theft is a fairly common issue for agents hosting open houses. To avoid this problem, make sure that you lock up all your valuables and keep them out of sight. Just important, make sure that dangerous items like medications are locked up. This is something that I've talked about during one of our real estate TV shows, and this happens way more often than you could possibly think of. It's something that's real, and it is something that happens very often. And when we're prepping sellers and we're prepping houses to have them sell, if they are occupied and there's, we first of all tell them to hide all the should put them in a safe place, lock it up if you possibly can. Just make it disappear because if it's there, there's no way you could be able to track everybody of what they do. Even if they're right in front of you, some people are so clever and their hands are so quick, they might be able to get one over on even the person with the most keen eye. So we're all human beings, and things could happen. So, in order to avoid things happening, and in order to avoid craziness and theft and medicine of being stolen, make it disappear before anybody comes into the place. It's it's a bad sign for where we are in society when people are stealing other people's medication, but it's just a part of life right now and something we just have to deal with. So avoid it by not making it available. Number two, TMI text message. When homeowner Rihanna was asked by an agent via text when a good time was to show her house, she replied, "Cringeworthy, definitely TMI." I don't even know what TMI is. If anybody listening right now, uh, that happens all the time as far as people are concerned with the text messages. You're getting a lot of people texting, and looking quickly. I'm notorious for typos. I never had one that said pooped instead of mopped, and I think I would be horrified if that happened. It's pretty bad, but you get things like that happen all the time. And I would sincerely recommend proofreading before you send a text, unless it's like a 1, 2 word text. Just read it really quickly before you send it out because you could have that. You could have that issue happen anytime, especially the way everything works right now. Number three, sellers in the nude. Most homeowners keep their personal lives well personal, but sometimes prospective buyers get very intimate and look into the homeowners' routines. In one case, agent Susie showed up to an owner's house for a showing, but the owner had overslept and was scrambling to get ready. As she poked her head around looking for him, the door to the bathroom opened up and revealed himself completely naked, see for a pair of slippers. It's another thing that happens very often, and it could become very embarrassing. And it's not only embarrassing for the homeowner, it's embarrassing for the agent that might have to get a full view of whatever they see. Uh, it gets very embarrassing sometimes with the buyer. It gets very awkward. If a sale ends up happening and somebody ends up purchasing the place because of that reason, then you got a great story out of it. But it could get very awkward. It could get a little bit dicey and a little bit weird as far as having to deal with that. So you want to avoid that. And I have to say, on a personal experience, that has happened. That has happened under my watch a couple of times with not only with sellers but with tenants that were in the place. So it's weird. The other thing is, from a creepiness factor, you want to make sure that you tell the homeowner ahead of time. Make sure that they know that you're not coming alone, and that, because there has been occasions where you had people that, for lack of a better word, are really creepy and they don't do the right thing, and you want to and they do things on purpose. Some people get a kick out of getting a shock factor of having somebody walk in on them naked and that kind of thing. And again, I'm not saying that's always the case, but it does happen. So if that does happen, I would suggest to, you know, just to avoid it. Yeah, that's the best way to say it. Just avoid it by making sure and make it clear to the homeowners that you're coming into the place if they're living in the house, and it's not within their time limits of when they're in the house, to make sure that they have no surprise, and try to make it clear that you're not coming in alone. So it's sometimes more of an issue for women, unfortunately, than it is for men. But I don't want to sound sexist or whatever the case is, but a lot of times women realtors have to deal with a lot of this stuff a lot more than men do, and it's just the way it is. And hope they wasn't. Number four, the home wrecker. Some people take foreclosure on their property harder than others. The owner of one house in particular decided to respond to the news by painting obscenities on the walls and punching holes in the cabinets. He even poured concrete down the toilets. Oh, I know that very well, with the concrete down the toilets. And I did receive a few stories from landlords stating that their tenants did that. So that's a lot of only people moving out of the house that are getting evicted. That's a bad thing. Uh, and stop up the plumbing. There was so much damage to the house that the city condemned the property rather than put it up for on sale for auction. Notice Notice of foreclosure is hard, whatever your circumstances. If you're an agent or investor who wants the property, be prepared to spend a little extra money in repairs and on repairs to damage caused by homeowners unhappy of the loss of their home. That goes without saying. And I've talked about foreclosing on homes, and people are losing their homes in past shows, and it is definitely a bad situation when you're dealing with that. Definitely a difficult situation when you're dealing with that, and it's tough. It's a rough situation, and these here situations that they're talking about, there's a lot worse that could happen when you go into war. You want to talk about real estate horror stories? Try going to a house that has been foreclosed on. You're going in, just getting ready to photograph and get set up, and just evaluate what the current condition is, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch of squatters in there, or even worse, you see a bunch of violent squatters in there, or you know drugged up squatters in there that could, be dangerous to you. It's happened. It happens every day. And it's happened to me in personal experiences where I've walked into a house where I felt a surprise that I definitely did not want to see. I've seen crack addicts passed out on floors. I've seen uh, people that are all messed up on heroin. I've seen animals that were killed or like dead animals in places, dead raccoons and all kinds of weird, screwed up stuff. And you got to be careful. You know, avoid any horrors like that. Like I said, this show went from a different direction what we usually do. We usually on a show like this we get into a little bit of the supernatural. We get into a little bit of this. We're because of the feel of today. I try to tend into a more realistic approach and with stories that are a little bit more real. Now, let me read number five. Number five, raining rat poison. Upon moving into a new house in Pennsylvania, Liz Spicole was greeted with a short notice from her previous owner stating, "We have seen a mouse. One mouse did not seem like a big deal for the new owner, so she continued with her moving. Within a week, however, she noticed a blue powder falling from the ceiling and opened it to expect the ceiling area was overrun by mice, dead and alive. The blue powder was rat poison." Yeah, that's pretty scary and pretty nerve wracking for somebody that should move into a house. Maybe because I'm so desensitized by a lot of the stuff that I've seen and a lot of the stuff that I've had to deal with in the past, that stuff like that does make me flinch twice. Obviously, I don't like it that moment when I see it, but keep reading a story about it, you know, I've seen a lot of where, I mean, I've seen rat nests in places where they bury themselves inside the walls and try to get that done, rectified. It's a big mess. And I'll say something: if you never smelled a dead mouse in a house before, you don't want to. It's not a great smell. Trevor, you ever found a dead mouse in a house? What does it smell like? You don't want to know. You don't want to know. It's probably one of the worst smells you could probably smell. It's because, especially because usually they get stuck in a wall or some kind of crevice where you don't see them, and they start rotting. Now that's pretty graphic. Or this is pretty disgusting, but it's reality. They start rotting in that place, and you don't know where it's coming from. So it starts to like circulate through the whole house, and until you find where it is, where that mouse is, or it completely decomposes, you're not gonna get rid of that smell, and it's disgusting. And I've seen this happen time and time again. So, raining rat poison. That was a story in itself. Investor con job. Jay Sayer of Fort Collins decided to put up his home for sale himself. A great way to save money on an agent. I could already see either where this is going. While the house was listed, an investor approached him and asking to lease his property for 5 years and then buy it outright. The lease amount was generous and the buyout price was above market value. So Sayer agreed, only to learn that the investor was going to sublet the house to people Sayer didn't know. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily something that was wrong that the guy did. I don't know if there's any subleasing clauses inside their lease. Now, why does this always come back to the landlord-tenant thing? It's like it's pulling me in to have another conversation about it. But if there's a provision or a clause or a term inside the lease stating that they have a right to sublease, kind of, and regardless of how much they're getting, the landlord or the owner is out of luck because they agreed to a different number, and if the tenant is getting more money and there's nothing holding them back from that doing that, then it's on the owner, it's on the landlord as far as not putting a good lease together or a lease with the option to buy. And I will say this: if you're, regardless of the state that you're in, whether you're in New York, because New York is mostly a attorney state for the most part on major transactions that are happening in real estate, you're usually getting an attorney involved. In a purchase with option to buy or a lease own type of situation, I strongly suggest you get an attorney that knows the laws and how to structure a legally binding contract in the best possible way involved. Pay the extra money. I know it hurts to pay extra money, but if you're paying a little bit up front and it saves you a lot later, it's well worth it. Make sure that you hire a proper professional, which is attorney in this case, to make sure that you are well protected and there's no funny business going on. And that's it. I don't find this to be that big of a deal as far as this story is concerned. It was just a poor decision on that seller slash landlord's part. Now, if they told me that somebody went in there and turned it into a brothel, that I could see is a bad thing because that's happened in the past and it happens. I'm not going to get into one specific situation right now because it's an ongoing case, but just to give you a very vague idea of what I'm dealing with, is I got a tenant that ended up putting a stripper pole in there, and you add you do the math as far as what she's doing in there because we got cameras in the building, and there's a lot of strange individuals going in and out of that place on a daily basis, and multiple people go on a daily basis. And we're going through the process right now through eviction courts to see if when and if we'll be able to rectify this situation. But I'll give everybody a full story of that when it's completely done. That's just a brief summary, and it's definitely something that, as nerve wracking as it is, as bad as it is, it's almost comical in the same direction. I don't know. It's weird. That's being a landlord in New York. That's a horror story in itself. And just on a side note, I received countless messages and emails stating that 2020 was a real estate horror story. And I could see why people are doing that, especially if you're a commercial uh, landlord, if you own commercial property, if you're a commercial broker, if you're selling commercial in the city, anywhere. If you're a landlord, we've gotten into that as well. It's been a horror story for a lot of people in real estate for 2020, and not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's been a major problem. Like I said, you know, in the suburbs, things are booming. People are um, selling very quickly. There's rapid demand, and we shouldn't have any kind of change in that for at least the short term. And those people are doing okay, but in most cases, people are not having such a great situation. So on to number seven, quiet as a graveyard. Mary Shelsby, of an agent in Pittsburgh, was found on her way to use a neighborhood down what? Found a way to use a neighborhood downside to promote a property she was trying to sell. Highlighting her sense of humor, Shelsby posted for sale and open house signs that claimed her property possessed the quietest neighbors across the street. the residents of a graveyard. Now, I don't find that to be really a horror story. I First of all, it's probably one of the oldest things that people say as far as in the real estate business, as real estate agents and brokers are concerned. Quiet neighbors, quiet as ghosts, you know, stuff like that. Whenever you're next to a graveyard or across the street from a graveyard, etc., etc. In her case, one, it's a corny little tagline that she's using, which I don't think a lot of people appreciate. The other thing, it's in bad taste. You know, I tend to get away from those kind of gimmicks and those kind of lines. The only thing that's of horror with this story is the fact that it's in bad taste. I'm just going to jump to the next one. Number 8, meth head history. I just jumped into a little bit of the drug situation, so let's see what this one's all about. After purchasing a home in Tennessee, one man was surprised to find out that the previous owners ran a meth lab out of their basement. It turns out that the city had listed the house as unfit to live in due to the history of a meth lab. And this is something I actually brought up in the past, where if they declare a house as a meth lab and the toxins and the vapors and all that stuff when they're cooking that stuff up gets into the walls and the floor, the place can go condemned. History of the meth lab and required new residents to bring the property up to code in order to continue living there. Should have read the whole sentence before I cut myself off, but that's basically what happened, and that's something you got to be seriously mindful of, especially if you're buying a foreclosed property as is, you're buying a drive-by, unseen house. You got a situation like that, you might have to knock the house down. It could be that bad. That's a horror story, especially for that buyer. Hopefully, none of those drug addicts died in the house, or died, period, because that would be another horror story in itself. But things like that happen all the time. And it's not just in Tennessee, it's everywhere. Believe it or not, stuff like that happens here in New York. It's not as talked about because it's not as rampant, but it happens. Number 9, watering the house. As noted in story 4, people are often angry at the bank for foreclosing on their home. Some take the anger out on the home itself, while home wreckers typically focus on destroying walls and fixtures, like in story number 4. Others get more creative. For instance, Agent Karen Anjali Glubis reported that a Tampa home was damaged beyond repair by an owner who ran a garden hose through the ceiling and left it pouring water into the foreclosed home for days. That I've seen. Believe it or not, I have seen that. And you want to hear something even crazier? I got a story from somebody that their tenant is doing that to their building right now as we speak, and they're actually still living in the house. That's a pretty messed up thing to do. Not only to the landlord, the homeowner, the person that's buying the place, but if you're actually living in the place and you're doing that, you got to have a little bit of screw loose because you don't want to live in that kind of environment. And even if you call up the codes and enforcement agencies, and if it's here in New York, you call 311 and start getting violations or fines on the place, it's not going to be rectified right away. So you've got to be willing to be in a pretty nasty environment for at least a few days prior to being completely rectified, because that kind of damage doesn't get fixed in 1 second. It takes a little time. First of all, you got to open up walls all over the place and dry them out because you don't know where that water is going to avoid mold in the future. It gets nasty. It gets real nasty. And anybody that does that has no heart, and they're really awful people, in my personal opinion. Number 10, seller armed and dangerous. New to the real estate profession, Agent Cody never suspected that he would need to deal with a predatory, gun-toting seller, but that he did. In fact, each time a buyer visited the seller's house for a showing, the owner would hide in the house with his guns or tools, sure that somebody was coming to rob him. After the closing, Cody and the buyer helped the owner load the guns and tools to move out of the house. That's that's scary. And there are people that are a little nutty with their guns, as far as like wanting to take them out and flaunt them, or kind of like give you an idea that they're willing to use it. That's not a very comfortable situation, and you at the same time, it's a very dangerous situation. You don't know what the mental capacities of that person is at that given time, but you know that the person's not right. There's something definitely wrong with them if they're going to be threatening people and making people feel awkward walking through the house that they're trying to sell. It's a little crazy. And the fact that he got a buyer to buy the place, and not only bought the place, helped the owner load all his artillery onto the moving truck with their tools. That was a miracle itself. I don't know if that's that. I think that's a miracle story rather than a horror story. It's the horror part of it is the scariness going through it and having a guy threatening to kill people or or intimidate them. But I think that's more of a miracle story than the fact that he actually got to sell that thing. That's kind of nuts. Number 11, bathroom gatherings. A chair would be a perfectly acceptable. Would be perfectly acceptable in sitting or in a sitting or living room, but an armchair in a bathroom, complete with an area rug and pillow, is odd. One property, as showcased below, featured exactly the setup. I'm going to actually pull out the picture and attach it to wherever I can on Facebook so people can see that. Um, Featured exactly the setup, which made it a bit awkward to shoot and show the property perspective to for prospective clients. I can see the horror on the listing agent's face when they go to the house for the first time and see that setup. But I think that's more of a comical thing. I've had a lot of situations where I saw things I never saw in my life before, never imagined that I'd see in my life, but I did. And I, for some reason, every day that passes, every year that passes in this business, I find things more and more odd and strange. Uh, but they happen. These things do happen. I'll give you a perfect example. I sold a house that had a toilet installed in the shower. It happens. Why do you need a toilet installed in the shower? Got to do two things as multitaskers. You need to have a toilet and a shower all in the same place, and you get it all done simultaneously. I guess that was a mindset, but this was real. This is I'm not even exaggerating just to make it comical for radio or video. That this is something that I came across, and I know that I have a picture of it somewhere. And when I do go in the archives and find it, I will make sure that I post it for people to see because this is just too good to hold back. Next, number 12, unwelcome guests. Mike Litzner of an agent in Long Island, finally in Long Island, New York, reported finding a homeless man living in a house he was showing potential buyers. The man created a fort around him and stocked it with alcohol and helped manage cold nights. One buyer humorously asked him if the fort came with the house. Unfortunately, this happens. And this is kind of what I was talking about as far as squatters going to the place. This does happen. And they're lucky that the guy wasn't violent. That's the biggest thing. Thankfully, there was no incidents. And number 13, we finally got to number 13. Slightly haunted listing. Gregory Leeson of Dunmore, Pennsylvania, wanted to be completely open about the state of his home. So he included on this listing, slightly haunted. Nothing serious though. It is unclear if he was trying to be funny or wanted to avoid legal issues. But the sounds of screams coming out from the home have caused a lot of attention. In fact, the owner has received several offers and some requests for interviews from media. If it actually is haunted, I don't know how you can make a joke out of it. Everybody knows I don't believe in this stuff. I don't believe in haunted houses. I have to see something to believe it. And I'm still on that mission to actually sell a house that's supposedly haunted. I don't know if that opportunity will ever come across my way because I've come across plenty of houses that supposedly, I can do the air quotes again, supposedly haunted, but they're, it's all talk. But if I do come across it, I'll definitely welcome the opportunity and run with it. But if it was really, there was something really disturbing going on with it, I would not be making a joke and writing slightly haunted. I don't know what I would do to actually approach it the way it should be, but I'm not going to take that approach. Now, in his case, it could be a publicity stunt, it could be just a media gimmick. Maybe that was what it is, but poor humor. Again, I find more horror coming out of poor humor than actual reality sometimes. And this, I think, it was just one of those situations with poor humor. Now, I went through this entire list of 13 things from the article, and I didn't expect to be able to dig any deeper into much more. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some add-on videos, kind of like I did last week. I know that last week after the show, when I put that live stream the following day, it was a little bit somber. It was a little bit down. It was making people a little depressed. And quite frankly, I was a little bit down on the nature of the conversation. And that again was real estate related through landlords and tenants and the goings on at the moment with what landlords are dealing with. And I'm not going to continue going down that path as far as trying to be down. You caught me at a low moment when I was doing that live stream, and I'm going to make sure that I try to keep a little bit more upbeat and a more chipper of a tone going forward. But with that being said, I am definitely going to keep doing that going forward as far as putting uploads of live streams, or depending on the week and how much time I have, either a live stream or a pre-recorded type of video that's going to be add on to the show. So like I said in the past, and I'm going to repeat now, it is only an hour show, and there's only so much you can fit into a full hour. So I'm going to make sure that whenever I have thoughts, whenever I have a topic that I feel is left unfinished and there's a continuation, there's a need for a follow-up, I will make those follow-up videos to complete my thoughts. So before I sign off, I just want to thank everybody again for these awesome past 3 years. Keep sending all your messages or your emails to realestateplateRadio@gmail.com. Keep looking for the new videos and posts on both YouTube through our channel, and you can look at them through my Facebook page. I'm not a very tough guy to show. I'm not going to get into specifics of the titles and everything that we have on there. All you got to do is Google Mixer Callus, and I guarantee you'll find a ton of content that comes up. Or the Real Estate Plate. Looks like the one thing that I've been able to accomplish, especially in Google and the rankings, is when you type in the Real Estate Plate, I come up there, and you'll be able to find a lot of stuff through there, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And if you don't, I know that you'll put a comment to tell me that you don't, because I see the comments, the good and the bad ones, and I do respond to them all. I know that I can't get to them immediately, especially on the ones that are really vocal, but it's not by design. It's just because I am trying to get to them as much as possible. And then when you have a high volume type of situation of commentary, it's just very difficult to be able to catch up with them, especially when this is not your primary job. So that being said, I hope everybody has an awesome week. I hope everybody has a great Halloween, a safe Halloween. And I'm going to get off the radio right now because it looks like we're about to run out of time. I see Lou already trying to set up behind me, so sooner or later he's going to push me out the door. Trevor's getting antsy over there. And have a great week. Hopefully you get a lot of real estate transactions done. If you run across a real estate horror house or a haunted house, shoot a picture, take a video, send it over to me. I'd love to see what you got. Have a great night.
Interesting.